So Wes, we're going to start this week by giving a quick shout out to one of our recent reviewers. It's a beautiful review and we'd love it if you all did it, and we might even give you a shout out. Stick your Twitter handle in, stick your name in, whatever you want, and we'd tell you just how beautiful a person you are. So this review is titled Fantastic New Podcast from Legends of FPL. I think that's a little bit kind of me, Wes, but definitely fits you. I came here as a big fan of both hosts from years of fantastic content they've been putting out. I can only say that this exceeded all of my expectations and it was a very enjoyable listen. If you're an FPL player, then this should be added to your podcasts each game week. I'm already excited for the next episode. All of my support to you both from FPL Nima. So big thanks to FPL Nima. Go check them out on Twitter at FPL Nima.
Yeah, absolute legend. I hadn't actually read that review myself, John, until...
it's a beautiful one. A lot of effort went in there.
Until you literally just read it out. I'm not really on the Apple stuff, am I? So you get most of the reviews. But that's brilliant. And yeah, I know Nima, a guy I know from Twitter, a pretty fast growing Twitter account actually, and he's got his own content as well. But yeah, I had no idea that it was going to be from him, genuinely. And I had no idea that what he was going to read out. But yeah, that was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
So yeah, I'll drop him a thanks later for that. And send me the screenshot, John. I'll chuck it on our Twitter as well. So that's a great one. Love that.
Yeah. He actually put it up quite some time ago now, because there aren't many recent reviews, Wes. That's why we're doing this. So if people stick out some...
Bastards,
a lot of them. Stick in some reviews. It takes 2 minutes if you have Apple. If you don't have Apple, go and steal your mum's phone. Go and steal your cousin's phone. I don't care whose it is. And basically drop a little review. Say some nice words if you want. That's the only way I'll get shouted out in a podcast, or just hit 5 stars. It literally takes seconds. Just go to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and scroll to the bottom. But that's about it for the plug this week. Licking our own arses here, Wes. But yeah, thanks again to FPL Nima. And something I just wanted to talk to you about, Wes, it's kind of an observation this week, was the sheer amount of goals. Do you know, with 7, 3, 2, 3, 5, 4, 4, 3, 2, 5. That's all the Premier League games. And do you remember that thing that was out a few weeks ago in the pod we were discussing? From Duncan Butler? I think it was Duncan Butler, was it?
I think so.
Is Duncan Butler... Duncan Castles? Is that a guy?
I think there's a few guys. I think Duncan Alexander. Duncan Alexander's the guy you're talking about, the stats guy.
It is, yeah. Duncan Butler's actually like a friend of mine from Football Index days. I don't think he listens, but if he does, he's going to be really surprised at the name drop.
He's got a shout out for no reason.
He's got a great moustache. Anyway, Duncan Alexander. Let me just double check this. Yeah, that one. Oily Sailor on Twitter. He said about how like the goals per month seem to be dropping off, and that could be down to fatigue and the amount of football. Probably a fair observation. But at the time, I was kind of questioning it, saying like, it was a bit of a shit use of data at the time, because the last month that he had included might have been March, say, and there was only like a week gone in March, and it was one low scoring game week. Do you know? I felt like it needed to be. Now, I'd actually be interested to see how that materialised over the rest of the month of March, but April's went off to a flyer. I don't know if it was the international break, a lot of players getting a rest. Obviously, the elite players maybe not. Or if it's just chance, but definitely the kind of conversations about going 4 to 5 at the back that we've had over recent weeks are maybe kind of put in the back burner for now.
Exactly, yeah. That tweet was around the same time as people were kind of independently thinking it as well. They were thinking, Premier League games had sort of turned a little bit low scoring, but it happens every season where there's a certain stage of the season where there's a lot of clean sheets knocking around. All of a sudden, your strikers are blanking. You're seeing clean sheet points in your mates' teams, and you're thinking, I should be going for more defenders. I think we kind of advised against it, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, John, saying, look, swings and roundabouts, it happens. Generally speaking, it's not going to continue. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I always like a 3 at the back formation along with, 5 midfielders, a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 essentially, getting all those attackers in there as I can. And this week, there's only 2 clean sheets out of 20 teams, so 18 teams conceded. The only ones to keep clean sheets were City and Liverpool, so not many people would have had clean sheets this week. John Stones, Cancelo rested.
That was a killer for a lot of teams this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, I imagine it would have been. I don't have anyone anymore. Sorry, any of those two. But yeah, Diaz would have got some people clean sheets. Trent and Robbo might have done okay for some people, but even those guys aren't as popular as, or they're nowhere near as popular as they were last season or early on in the season. So no, you didn't miss out too much by not having clean sheet points this week. I didn't get any clean sheets or any attacking returns for defenders either. So yeah, I think it swings and roundabouts. It comes and goes. This season in general, though, I've noticed it's a higher scoring season for FPL points. So a lot of people have putting up screenshots on Twitter how their points tally from this season is already ahead of seasons where they've had really good seasons, but even by the end of the season they've had less points. And if you look back at your whole season histories, you'll notice that total points is different year on year because of just the way it goes. So, yep, I don't see any reason to go to 4 or 5 at the back, really.
Yeah, like I have a bunch of seasons there when I look at my history ways, and like there's no real correlation between the point total and your position. There's a rough correlation, obviously, with the peaks and the troughs, but in the middle, it's a bit messy. And I think where it comes down to is there's seasons where there's nailed on captains every single week, and players are performing amazingly. There's seasons like, even last season, I don't know if it was a high scoring season, but I mean, there was De Bruyne and Trent who were just undroppable, unstoppable. We've had obviously the Mo Salah season a few years back. I think back to Ronaldo's days when he scored the 30-something goals from the wing. It does kind of swing and roundabouts each season, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about context. So yeah, points totals are relevant. It's more about the sort of overall ranks. And if you think about even game week to game week, like people sort of get really happy if they've got, say, a 100-point score. But like I've said before, if you get 100 and the average is 110, you're better off on a week where you get 50 and the average is 40. It's all context in the overall scheme of the game. Whether it's a high scoring season or low scoring season, it's all about competing with other people, isn't it, at the end of the day, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. Well, Wes, look, there's our little kind of preamble. Just kind of a little nod to the fact that there was a lot of goals last week, and maybe it's a sign of changing times. People trying to play for the Euro spots, rested legs after international break for many. But we'll see how that pans out next week. But will we get into the meat of the pod?
Let's go for it, John.
So Wes, the big thing on people's minds this week is wildcards. And don't worry, if you're not wildcarding, you'll probably still have to make 1 or 2 transfers. And you'll probably even just be looking ahead to future game weeks anyway. So look, while we're maybe looking at wildcards and players to kind of look for the fixture swings, etc., it's still okay. Like me and Wes, we aren't actually wildcarding. We've no chips left, but it's still an interesting conversation, we'd like to think.
Exactly.
So what are your initial thoughts, Wes, on a wild card? There's a lot of people doing it. It's obviously a time that a lot of people have pinpointed for weeks. I've been hearing about this wild card for a long time, and it's making me sick because I don't have one.
Yeah, same.
What are your initial kind of thoughts on it?
So yeah, and like you said, John, I want to double down on the fact that this section should still be interesting and applicable for people like me and you. We don't have a wild card. I've done a lot of research so far into it for the WhatsApp groups I run, and helping out the guys who are wildcarding in those. But yeah, I'm not. But I do have 2 free transfers, so I'm potentially, maybe doing 2 or 3 transfers this week to then kind of bring in those main wildcard assets. So if you're in a similar boat to me, you can't do a full wildcard, but you can definitely get the sort of main assets that you want. So obvious standout picks that were kind of on my mind already, and they definitely are now. The likes of Jota and Trent Alexander-Arnold are high. They'd be definitely my wildcard team. 100% those 2, and they backed it up against Arsenal. It would be frustrating if I wasn't a wild card now, because I'd have already gone for those boys, and then after that performance against Arsenal, now everyone's going to go for them. But yeah, so I am potentially looking at those sort of guys for my free transfers over the next couple of weeks, and they'd be definitely my wild card team. Keepers wise, I might look at something like Mendy at Chelsea, because he's priced at only 5.2. But yet he's playing as part of the best recent defence. Obviously, we've got the West Brom game that I know you wanted to sort of discuss, John, because it's a question on your lips for this week as well. So I don't know if you want to kind of... We'll dig into Chelsea now, actually, and then we'll come back to wildcard.
Yeah, so I was going to jump in, Wes, because a question I wanted to ask you, quite bluntly, was Chelsea. I'd planned to bring in Azpilicueta this week for target, and I'm sure a lot of people were targeting Chelsea defenders, but are kind of sitting on the fence now, or their bum's starting to kind of tweak a little bit. It's starting to twitch, They're thinking, geez, what's going on here? After conceding 5 to West Brom, maybe it's not the move. Maybe they're thinking they need to go to Liverpool, to Trent, to Robbo, and maybe they can't afford it. That's where I am anyway. Yeah. Would you be turned off Chelsea because of that performance?
No, I wouldn't be turned off. There was obviously the red card. They were sloppy before the red card, but not sure what it was. They had a lot of players obviously who were on international duty who were then late back and couldn't train properly. It's kind of excuses, to be fair. They did let in 5 goals to West Brom. West Brom's goals were really high quality though. So West Brom did very well and scored some really nice goals. And I think I think it's just a bad day at the office. I think I wouldn't be writing off their defence off one bad performance, because they were amazing before then. They weren't just sort of like average defensively under Tuchel. They were like amazing. So yeah, I'm putting it down to one off. I'm putting it down to the fact they had 10 men for a long period of time, etc., and some good finishing from West Brom. So yeah, and the next 4 fixtures: Crystal Palace away, Brighton home, West Ham away, which is obviously now a tougher fixture, but then Fulham at home. So 3 decent fixtures out of 5. They've got some good cheap assets, like I said. Mendy's kindly priced for a Chelsea keeper. Rudiger and Christensen are kindly priced. Azpilicueta, like you've mentioned, John, he was the one you were looking at. He seems the most nailed, doesn't he, so far? He's probably the defender with the most Premier League minutes under Tuchel, or in the last sort of 8 games, is my guess. But yeah, I still like Rudiger. I think he won't miss too many games, and it does mean you save that money. And if you have a good bench option, so I have Rudiger already, and I had a decent bench option to come in. I only got me 2 points in the end, but it was Concert at home to Fulham, which could have obviously gone better. So yeah, I'm not put off Chelsea. I do get the fact that it does definitely change your opinion a little bit though, because before, like, I was putting Chelsea down against West Brom as a guaranteed clean sheet, and it obviously didn't happen. And then, you know, you do have to take into account recent form. You do have to take into account this game. So I'm maybe not as bullish as I was on Chelsea defence, but I still am fairly confident, and I'd be happy to, you know, if I see wildcard drafts with double Chelsea defence, I'd still be thinking that's probably a good idea still.
Poor friend of the show, FPL General, had 3 Chelsea in his defence, I think, I've seen. Is it? Yeah.
I think he went for, off the top of my head, he went for Mendy in goal, Alonso for his sort of attacking potential, and it seemed like he was going to play this game. I don't think he's nailed longer term though, Alonso. And let's just say, I think it was Azpilicueta. So yeah, a real stinger for General. But again, you can't criticise it as a move because he was on his wild card. Before that game, their defence was obviously awesome. They had West Brom at home. He should have got rewarded with more points than he did there. And Alonso, I think he hit the post twice as well. So
yeah. I feel very lucky, Ways, because obviously last week on the podcast I was kind of looking at Alonso's previous minutes and questioning the kind of bullishness of the community. Do you know, everyone was seemed to be on Alonso, albeit the wider FPL scene, his ownership wasn't particularly high, but in Twitter his ownership was 80%. And I just had zero interest. And then whenever I seen him hit the post twice, I was thinking, thank God, see if he'd scored. I felt sick. Do you know what I mean? I feel somewhat vindicated with the 5 goals conceded, and I think he got 2 or 3 points.
3 points,
yeah. For me, I don't know. I just don't know. I think I would still be going Azpilicueta, and call me risk adverse. You're right. I just think, while yes, he had the highest chance of scoring a goal of anyone in the Chelsea team or something, statusing, or the most XG or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm just waiting for him to be rotated for Chilwell or Emerson or something. Maybe he can play further up the pitch as well, and maybe I live to rue this, but it's for me.
Sorry, just jump in. Yeah, I fully agree. It's like a risk versus reward type thing, isn't it? Where, for me, again, for us, for a 1 week punt, someone like, you know, people last week had a wild card in hand, so they could have taken the 1 week punt on Alonso. But yeah, going forward, my Chelsea defenders in order off the top of my head, you know, I might change my opinion on this, but it would probably be Rudiger first, then Azpilicueta, purely for the money saving. If they were the same price, it would probably be Azpil. Then third would probably be Christensen, and maybe even fourth Alonso, or I probably wouldn't go near Alonso because there's going to be too much rotation, like you just said, John.
Speaking of saving money in defence, Wes, we've talked about Trent. Robertson's there for 0.2 less. Hasn't been, he hasn't had his games recently in terms of, when he has had lots of games, but he hasn't had like a standout performance. It's been a long time since he's been getting goals or assists. Maybe he's got an assist recently, I'm not too sure. Basically what I'm saying is people are all looking at Trent out of those two. And it's probably right, realistically, with only 0.2 in the difference. But if you look elsewhere in their defence, if I was on a wild card in particular, Kabak at 5 million, okay, once you get to Kabak and Phillips, who I'm going to talk about here, there is obviously a rotation risk. There is the risk that Fabinho drops in to defence. There is that type of risk that Klopp fucks about. But Kabak at 5 million in Liverpool, of 2 clean sheets on the bounce, the strongest finish of the season in terms of fixtures, 0.4% ownership. I think he could have a chance of a goal before the end of the season, maybe from a header. I'm just maybe, and
he's good in the air defensively anyway. I'm not too sure about attacking, but yeah.
I've seen him in the box a few times, and I was I remember a couple of times thinking, geez, he could have scored, because I have him on So Rare, which is another kind of fantasy platform. But anyway, the big one here is Phillips. Now, Phillips, again, minutes can be patchy, but in the last 6 fixtures he's only missed 120 minutes, and he's 4 million. So I think if you're wildcarding, he is this, for me, the standout budget defender to kind of enable. You have to have Phillips for me at 4 million.
Wow, that's bold. I know what you're saying, and I definitely think he's a great option. I wouldn't put him in must-have, only because if you wanted triple Liverpool elsewhere, so say if you wanted Salah, Jota, and Trent, then you.
Wes, God, I'm such a chump. But
it's your overall point about Phillips is still right though, because he is a great option, and maybe that if you don't go for that triple up of say Trent or Robbo and then Salah plus Jota.
So if you don't need 3 others, he's must have in terms of budget enabling. I don't think there's a better value 4 million defender in the game, is what I'm trying to say.
And actually, you might say if you build a wildcard squad and it's got Trent in it, but it's like, you get this ideal squad, but it's actually like $1 million overpriced or $2 million overpriced, and you're thinking, or even more, you're kind of thinking you probably have to change like 3 or 4 players to make it work, or you could just go Trent to Phillips and think, right, if Trent doesn't get any attacking returns for the next 6-7 weeks, or just gets the odd one, then over the course of the remainder of the season, Phillips and Trent should score fairly similarly, assuming he doesn't go mental with attacking returns like he can, of course. But yeah, let's just say he gets, last 8 games, Trent gets 1 assist and Phillips gets no attacking returns. They're going to score really similarly, and you're going to save yourself 3.3 million. So it's definitely worth considering if money's tight, if you haven't got a big budget, or if you want to squeeze in Bruno, Salah, Kane, Vardy, or whatever it might be, because there is a wildcard draft out there where you can have those 4, and but obviously with Trent as well, it might be tough. So yeah, I completely agree with your shout on Phillips of being a good shout. In an ideal world, obviously you want Trent, don't you? So if you can afford it, then go up to Trent if you can.
Yeah. So just one to keep an eye on. The likes of Phillips and Kabak there at 4 and 5 million. Do there are? It's not like Liverpool that we're used to, where it's Van Dijk up at 6.5, 7 million as well, and then you might have like a wee Gomez who's a bit of a rotation risk and blah blah blah. This is a kind of unique scenario where you have a Liverpool defender for 4 million.
4 million, yes, great, and their fixtures, like you said.
The fixtures, but I suppose what comes with that then as well, Wes, is the fact that because Phillips and Kabak are playing instead of Van Dijk and maybe Gomez, or Van Dijk and Kabak or whatever, maybe there is a higher risk of conceding. So anyway. Right, I think we've actually covered defence there between Chelsea, between Liverpool. I don't know if there's other defenders you wanted to cover in terms of wildcard and looking ahead, but...
Well, yeah, there are obviously a few options. It depends what you want to do with the likes of someone like Luke Shaw. Will he get rotated with Europa League? United in the Premier League haven't got as much to play for now. I know Shaw hasn't been rotated much recently, but will they rock him in cotton wool for those bigger European games? I don't know. I've still got Shaw in my team. I want to keep him because he's been so creative. You've got the likes of Dallas, who's got 3 tough fixtures, but if you're wildcarding and you can afford to bench him for a few and use the rest of your squad, you might want Dallas for those last few game weeks of the season. He's really cheap. He's playing in midfield still against Sheffield United. I noticed, because I owned him, I was watching him more carefully. He curled one from the edge of the area, hit the bar. He had a really good shot saved in the first half, and then in the second half he had a good shot, a good chance that he dragged wide. My point there being is it's a defender getting 3 shots at goal, and not just like lucky, not hopeful shots. 3 decent chances of actually scoring a goal there. So yeah, I'm kind of, if I was wildcarding, I might hang on to Dallas, ride out those tough fixtures with him on my bench because he's cheap enough to do so, and because you're wildcarding, you obviously can be picking other good options as well, the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Liverpool. So yeah, he's one to not necessarily just throw away based on a couple of tough fixtures. But yeah, like I said, John, I think we kind of covered defence. Diaz from City, I wouldn't touch anyone else from City if I was on a wild card apart from Diaz, because of how much rotation there is and the blank in 33. Maybe from 34 onwards I'll look again at City assets, I don't know, but yeah, at the minute maybe Diaz on a wild card, but he's quite kind of expensive, not that many attacking returns, and who knows, at the minute, people could turn around to me and say, Diaz is nailed for Man City for the Premier League, look at his minutes, and I get that, and I kind of agree, but I also would worry if I owned him that latter stage of the Champions League, latter stage of the cup competitions where he's their best defender, Pep is going to potentially, I'm not saying for sure, but he's going to potentially going to want to wrap him in cotton wool, and maybe he'll miss a game. I don't know. So there is still a rotation risk with every City player, in my opinion.
Yeah, City are just pissing me right off. Like, they're all the rotation risk. There's just no two ways about it. They are all the rotation risk. And that's just that. And it just does my head in because you can't pick them.
I know.
So good luck to anyone who does pick them. Do you know, I think I said a few weeks ago, and maybe it's starting to come to fruition, I was saying Aguero might have a strong finish to the Premier League season. Maybe they'll be saving legs for the Champions League. And Aguero will want to go out in a high before he moves on. And it certainly appears that is the case. And I think Aguero will get more minutes in the Premier League, man, trying to chase down records, etc. So we'll see how that pans out. But for me, bottom line is, I don't really want to talk about City because I'm just so pissed off that they've got Pep as a manager. It's just sickening.
Sorry to piss you off even more, but I want to ask you one question. I think I can't remember your exact team off the top of my head. I'm just bringing it up now. But I've got Gundogan in my team. I benched him this week. Anyway, you don't. You've only got Stones.
Yeah.
But I guess with those two, we've both got one of those. You've got Stones. I've got Gundogan. I'm kind of in between things of I might have other fires to put out, so I might not be able to transfer him out this week because I've got the likes of Antonio who's got a knock now. But I'm kind of hoping because Gundogan missed the last game, he'll play against Leeds, and I want to keep him. It's just so whilst we're on like the wildcard discussion, I would take Gundogan out, and if he gets points against Leeds, I just accept it as part of a longer term strategy that I don't want him. But for me in this situation, do I want to be using a transfer on Gundogan out when I think he might play against Leeds, and therefore maybe I can keep him for the Leeds game, hopefully get some points, and then move him on. So I'm in two minds on whether to hold Gundogan for my situation when I haven't got a wild card, and maybe the same for you with Stones because he's just had a rest.
Well, the thing for me with Stones is that Stones plays 90 or he plays 0. That's what he's played all season. He hasn't played another minute total. He plays 0 or he plays 90. And that suits me fine because I'll play him when I want to play him. And if he doesn't play, I'll get my guy on the bench. That's great. He scored 2 goals in his last 3 90-minute performances, which are his last 3 performances in the Premier League. And, I just think, and on the other ones, he's kept clean sheets because he's amazing. But not him, but the City defence.
Yeah.
It's one of those where, like, Stones I don't mind. The likes of Gundogan kind of pisses me off even more because you're more likely to get 35 minutes than you are 0 at times. But
I agree with everything you said on Stones and the fact that he's quite reasonably priced as well. So like you say, should have a deep squad at the minute. There's no sort of crappy players who don't play at the minute in most squads anyway, and definitely in ours. So yes, good shout. But like you said, with Gundogan, how many times did he actually come off the bench? I'm just looking back. He got 8 minutes against Wolves.
Still got an assist though.
Come off the bench too much actually. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he's actually
early on in the season he came off the bench a couple of times, but that doesn't really count because that's old Gundogan in my opinion. So yeah, I think
it turns out, Wes, as I actually look at that I'm probably
I guess he's sort of in a similar boat to maybe he's a 0 or 90 man, or not 90, sorry, 0 or majority of the minutes. But yeah, for me, Gundogan, if you're in that same situation like me and you've got him in your team and you haven't got a wild card, is he worth a transfer out this week? I'm not sure. I'm hoping. I'll definitely make my decisions after the Champions League. Maybe if he only gets 70 minutes, and if he starts and gets subbed after 70 minutes, that would be perfect for me. I'd start him against Leeds. But if he plays the 90, I've got a decision to make, haven't I?
Yeah. It turns out I was completely wrong about Gundogan. He is a bit of a 0 or 90 minute man himself, bar the very sporadic occasion where he might get 8 minutes, but
that is still that potential still there, like you said, where it's not really with Stones. So yeah, City
pissed me off as the bottom line. But look, in terms of wild cards, I think obviously everyone will be thinking Salah, everyone will be thinking Jota. Are people looking? It kind of goes to your tweet about fixture swings. Are people looking at Leicester players, Wolves players, Spurs players? I think at the minute everyone should maybe, in my opinion, should be getting Son in for the double. I'm talking midfielders here. I think you don't necessarily need Bale whatsoever.
Definitely not.
You don't need Bale. I have him. I'm going to keep him for that double and hope.
But I'd get rid if I was you, but that's just me. I'll have a little say on Son and Bale. Like you say, if you wildcard this week, you've got to be having at least 2 Spurs players on your wildcard. You can then maybe get your third in game week 32 when they play. Or you could get all 3 now, of course. Or maybe you don't need 3. Maybe their other assets aren't good enough and you can just ride that out with Son and Kane. Son, I saw a tweet earlier about sort of kind of detrimental or slagging Son off, whatever you want to say, about how he's only scored 1 goal in his last 13 or something. He's got a couple of assists in there. It's right to an extent that his recent form isn't as good as obviously his early season form. But yeah, I don't think I want to have no Son for a double game week. He's back to fitness now. He played 45 minutes, so he'll be ready to play 2 sets of 90 minutes in the double, I imagine. And we know what he can do if he's given half a chance. He can easily finish it. We know how creative he's becoming the more latter weeks. He's been better there. So yeah, I can't envisage going without Son for a double game week where Spurs are the only team with a double. So yeah, I think Son and Kane are obviously a must for that double, and then whether you go for the likes of a Lloris, if in your situation, John, it's difficult because you already have Bale and you're thinking maybe hold, but
yeah, I wouldn't be wildcarding him in, but I have other fires to fight is the way to put it whenever he's got a double game week coming up.
But the thing is it a double game week? The fact that think about how many players are ahead of him in the pecking order now. So Jose's played the same starting 11 2 game weeks in a row. The first one against Villa, he had no Son to pick, no Lamella, and Bale didn't even come off the bench in that game. So he's down the pecking order straight away. Then Son and Lamella were back. They both returned to the bench and they come on ahead of Bale. Assuming the next game Son starts again, that's going to relegate someone to the bench who's still ahead of Bale in the pecking order potentially. And you've got Lamella back from his suspension, like I just said, who came off the bench last game. So Lamella might even be the first sub on or play more. So I can't see Bale starting either of those games. 2 sub appearances in the double is what you're potentially going to get. If he gets no attacking returns, it's the 2 points, isn't it? So yeah, and obviously things change all the time. Maybe, Bale gets back into the team and goes blinding again. Who knows? But for me right now, as things stand, I would go nowhere near Bale, and I'd probably, if I had him, I'd probably even transfer him out as part of maybe 2 free transfers to get in the likes of Lloris.
Who do you bring him in? Who do you bring in from then? I've got Son, who everyone wants. I've got Bruno, who everyone has or wants. Lingard is the man. Rafinha in great form. Obviously terrible fixtures coming, which is annoying because of 3 Leeds players. Probably should look at getting rid of Dallas. City, Liverpool, United. Strong finish. Bench him maybe. Anyway, who am I bringing in? I'm looking at the midfielders there. Maybe trying to get up to Salah. Maybe Jota is the move. I don't know. Yeah. They're the only 2 that I kind of look at and go, yeah. Because other than that, the highest scorers are Rashford, who can fuck off. Sorry, that's a bit savage. I just don't fancy Rashford. I've been burnt with him before and he's got a yellow flag and I just can't be arsed with that. 3 City, there's 3-4 City players there. I'm talking at the highest points totals this season so far. Grealish with the flag. Ward-Prowse, get out of here. Barnes injured. Harrison, red flag as well. Mane, no thanks. Mount, rotation risk. Souček, yeah. Neto, no. Maddison, he's going to be injured again, isn't he? That's what I'm saying. There's just no one jumping out, so it has to be Liverpool.
Yeah, there's some decent options. Like you said, I'd probably look at Salah or Jota. If you don't want to go for one of those 2, though, I think you should be looking at those 2. But then there are other options, like Neto has got a good run of fixtures. We'll come on to the fixture swing soon. I'm not saying that you should necessarily go there. He's still a bit of a patchy player in terms of returns, but he's a decent option. And you've also got Mount is a little bit of a rotation risk, but he does play a lot of minutes, so he's fairly nailed on. One of their best creative forces and scored off the bench. And Maddison, wait and see how that one pans out at Leicester potentially. But yeah, I'd probably, in your situation, you've got the two main Spurs guys. You can go Bale to Jota quite easily, and then look at someone like, if you wanted, that's third Spurs player, Dallas to Reguilon, or a keeper to Lloris, or like I just said, ignore the third Spurs asset because there's no one standing out maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it mightn't be a bad idea, particularly with the 3 Leeds guys in my team. Not particularly with the 3 Leeds guys in my team. Who's the other team that bloody... It's City, isn't it? Yeah, thank God. I've already fought that fire. I've only got Stones left. I'm thinking for that blank in 33. But it mightn't be the end of the world just to have Son and Kane and have Jota for Bale and then stick the money elsewhere. Maybe get Trent for one of my defenders. Maybe change target to Trent or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But, in terms of midfield, we're kind of going all over the place here, but we're talking about a lot of very relevant points and players. But for me in midfield, the 2 standout options are Salah and Jota for obvious reasons. On the wild card, Leicester, a few other midfielders, like Barnes is obviously injured. Madison's just back. It's hard to get someone like Madison when he's just back in the team. He could go banging, or he could be rotated, or he could get injured again. It's just like, I don't fancy it personally. Tielemans has looked like a solid player this year. Maybe not for FPL so much, but I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be getting him, to be honest with you. So Leicester, I'm going to skim over.
Move it onto the forwards.
Yeah. Sorry, talk to me about Neto or maybe Wolves quickly, and then we can move on to forwards, because I'm interested. Like, Wolves are there. Wolves have been so lackluster this season.
They have.
But people are really considering them with fixtures. Do you know?
Yeah.
People are like, their fixtures are amazing, but I'm kind of like, but they're shite.
Yeah, exactly. So I would kind of fall into that camp, I guess. But and sort of wildcard drafts I have built so far, like I said, for the WhatsApp groups, haven't got any Wolves in. There are some assets there if you wanted to consider them. I wouldn't, but there are. You can't. You couldn't bet against Neto because he's a good player and he has got those good fixtures. He got an assist last night, and he missed an open goal as well. So usually he'd tuck that away. So Neto could have had a haul last night. What else? Any of the sort of attacking option? No from Wolves, and defensively he's not very inspiring either. With Cody as a decent-ish cheap option, 4.8, he plays every game. You're going to get a nailed option for some nice fixtures, and the Cody of old never used to go forward for corners or anything like that. Now he does. So although he's not an amazing goal scorer, centre-back, of course he's not, he at least has the odd chance now. He scored against City earlier, not so long ago. He had a couple of really good chances against Villa recently as well. So, Cody of old, what I'm trying to say is Cody's got at least some attacking threat now. But yeah, like you've kind of summed up how I feel, John. I think that you're not going near Wolves. I'm not going to go near them with my free transfers. But if you're a big fan of Pedro Neto and you believe in him and you believe in Wolves for this fixture swing, then he could get you some points, and so could Cody.
The last team just to mention maybe was, before we go on to forwards, because I don't really think any other forwards are in the discussion, maybe Lacazette, is Arsenal. You have them down in your fixture swing sort of list of teams. Now, we talk about Arsenal more in the last few weeks than we did all season, to be honest with you. They've so many exciting young talents, but no one who's really excelling enough or like nailed enough or pivotal enough in that team to just be the guy. There's no guy. There's no Alexis Sanchez of old. Where there's no Aubameyang of like last season. There's no, right, who am I getting from Arsenal? It's very much like, I don't know, pick one of 5 or 6 and cross your fingers and toes.
So I tweeted out 5 teams, didn't I, that I've sent you this morning, which was that had that sort of decent fixtures from now on. But yeah, I was really, really disappointed with them against Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool are a good team, but despite of that, there's ways of playing against Liverpool or ways of playing in any game, and it was just really shocking from Arsenal from an attacking point of view. Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe offered absolutely zero, as did most of their midfield players. It was just really poor. Assets from Arsenal to maybe consider. There's a good goalkeeper rotation with Martinez from Villa and Leno from Arsenal. I haven't actually, unfortunately, got it to hand, but essentially what you're going to get if you do that on a wild card is have a keeper playing against poor opposition every single week, just because of the way their fixtures fall. You'll have fixtures against the likes of Fulham, West Brom, etc., etc. Can't remember off the top of my head, but go check it out. It's easy enough to do, and you'll see it's very good there. So that's a potential move. Again, not saying I would or wouldn't do that. I'd probably go Mendy on a wild card. Other than that, you've got Rob Holding, who's nailed on now with David Luiz out with a long-term injury. Holding's only 4.2 million, so he's really cheap. So a bit like early on with Phillips, if you needed to save some money to make the rest of your squad better, and you wanted that bench defender who's just gonna, he might come off the bench for you for a clean sheet or a 2-pointer, but it's just that cheap option. Again, he wouldn't probably be in a wildcard draft. I did, but he's an option. Lacazette I really don't like. Always inconsistent, always lets you down as FPL asset. Avoid, in my opinion. Aubameyang, avoid at the minute. People want him recently. I didn't know why. He's really expensive. He's not the Aubameyang of old. He sometimes plays left wing and has to track back a lot. So no. And the two I do like, I would be considering much more. I'd be considering them too much more if they were actually fit and firing, would be Smith Rowe, because he's dirt cheap. He's like 4.3 maybe. And Saka, who's only 5.2. those two are two exciting young attacking options who are cheap, who could be your bench player, and they've got good fixtures. But it's their injury issue, so see how that develops. I think Second might be back for the Europa League later on this week. So if he is back, then maybe you want to go for a little cheap midfield option on him. But I think that sums up Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just kind of a bit meh. We'll, I suppose in our stream later in the week, we'll have to look at some of the updated injury news and different things from around the league. I assume we are streaming later in the week, are we?
Yeah, we should be.
Yeah.
We haven't actually arranged.
We need to have a conversation. Yeah, because we'll go Thursday nights, but there's a couple of other people who stream on Thursday nights, and there's the Europa League. So, look, we'll have a conversation. In fact, no, I was about to say let's maybe look at a deadline one on Friday if you're about, but I'm working all day Friday. Thursday night it is, Wes. Let's go.
Thursday at 8. Europa League's not as big as the Champions League, so there's too much football. We literally can't avoid every football game because there's just football every time. So we'll probably just for the people listening, the best way to figure out what time we're going to be on will be via our Twitters. I'll be tweeting it from my Heisenberg account. Probably tweet it from the Double Up account, or maybe retweet it, and you'll see that me and John are on at a certain time in the UK time. It'll be easy to figure out. But it's likely to be Thursday at 8 p.m.
Yeah, Thursday 8 p.m. I imagine it will be, and we'll just be chatting for probably 45 minutes to an hour with updated news. We'll be going through our teams. We'll be looking at wildcards. We'll be taking questions from the people in the chat. That could be you, and all that stuff. Live
questions are more visual than the pod, isn't it? So that's where we can bring some stuff up on screen, and we can be actually interactive with your questions as they come in live. Whereas this is obviously a recorded pod that we put out later in the week. So if you want to come into the comments, say hello, we'll give you a shout out and answer your question live on air.
Absolutely. Well, Wes, last thing just to look at is wildcard, maybe forwards. We haven't actually touched on them. We have a lot of questions here as well, so I'm sure we've covered a lot of the points though, because we've covered basically every player in the game. But who stands out to you for your forwards? We'll take one of the slots out with Kane. We'll not even discuss that. You've 2 slots for forwards. Who are you going for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kane. He just has to be in your team whether you're on a wild card or not. If you haven't got Kane, transfer him in this week. And if you haven't got Kane, you're doing something wrong. So some strikers. So at the minute, it's really interesting actually. Strikers where we've been blessed this season with a lot of sort of 6.5-ish million strikers who have been doing the business, or sort of 6.5 to maybe 8 million sort of range. So we've had Watkins at certain stages this season who's been really good. Bamford, who's been a 6 million-ish striker who's been really good. Calvert-Lewin, who started at maybe 7.5 million, again at certain stages has been really good. Callum Wilson, even at one stage, has been really good. But at the minute, all those sort of guys in that price range I just sort of mentioned aren't the best options at the minute, with Watkins and Bamford having a bad turn in fixtures, and they're not really doing the business fully. I know Watkins just scored, but they're not getting great returns, those two. So I'd be looking at potentially moving to a 3-5-2 on a wild card. We just sort of spoke about a lot of expensive or good midfield options, so that's an option you could do, and therefore you could go for the likes of it depends obviously on your team. So I like Vardy obviously, and Iheanacho from Leicester. I don't even mind the double up potentially there. But John, you can add a siren there. Actually, I just said double up.
Double up.
But and I'm not again. So in some sort of drafts I've done, some include both. Some include Richarlison, who looked really. It's difficult to analyse Richarlison in terms of his performance last night, because what he did is he got into loads of really great positions where he should have scored a lot of goals. So you could look at that in a positive light and think goals are coming because a player getting in all those good positions and who's normally obviously a good player, Richarlison, should get you some FPL returns. Or you could look at that as, he's finishing so poor that he's never going to score you points. Depends how you want to look at it. I'd probably be in the former camp of saying, he was looking really dangerous last night. And if he continues like that, the goals should continue to flow. In the last sort of 5-6 game weeks roughly, he's changed position and gone a lot more central. It's kind of him and Calvert-Lewin as 2 strikers, whereas before he was kind of a wing-ish player and it wasn't getting the best out of him for FPL returns. So Richarlison's what I like, but it depends on budget. Another, if you want to go for a 3-5-2 and have a budget option, someone like Vidra at Burnley, I'm not saying is an amazing option, of course I'm not, but he's 4.8 million. He can be your bench option if money's tight and maybe chip in with some points here and there. And like I said, Iheanacho's sort of in that 5.5-ish million, I think. No, is he 5.8 actually?
5.8.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He's less than 6 million. Yeah. So yeah, we've kind of got a bit of a dearth of strikers at the minute, which is why I think maybe a move to 3-5-2 if you want a wild card. Another striker I didn't mention who is in my team, 6.5-ish again, is Antonio. He got a knock last night, so I'm personally waiting for news on that. I'm hoping it's not too bad because I'm really disappointed actually because we'll get into our game week soon, John. And I did have a good game week, so I'm not grumbling too much. However, Antonio did really. In that first 30 minutes, looked really dangerous. He had a shot hit the post. He had some other good things that was going on, and he was just looking really dangerous. Then his hamstring obviously reoccurred. So yeah, if you had Antonio, if he goes off with a hamstring injury, it's not necessarily bad luck because it's kind of got to be expected. But it just kind of highlights my point that there's a lot of those 6.5-ish million strikers who aren't on the radar at the minute. Can
I just throw like three at you that are a bit like out there?
Go on.
Danny, I'm not going to buy these guys, by the way. One of them I actually might, but don't think I will. Danny Welbeck, fair play to him. 3 returns on the bounce, assist, goal, 5.69. Obviously, shedding off fixtures. He does play for Brighton. I'm not going there, but for 0.4%, if we're talking differentials,
yeah,
I had 5.5 million. If you're looking for that wee benched kind of striker who might come on every so often, I don't know. He's just in great form and worth a shout out. Lacazette, who you said never, he always lets you down, and while I agree, Sheffield, Fulham, Everton, Newcastle, West Brom,
nice fixtures, yeah.
In his last 5, he's got 3 goals and an assist. I don't know. It's just like I don't think I'm going there because I think his price is a bit out. I think if he was like 7.5, maybe a bit lower, you'd be like, yeah, but 8.2, it's like you're getting a little bit too premium for me there, bud. But anyway, look, just worth a kind of shout. But the big one here that I haven't heard anyone really speaking about, maybe everyone's speaking about him and I'm missing it, is Chris Wood. Do you know, the Newcastle this week, United's tough, Wolves is tough enough, West Ham, do you know, the fixtures aren't great, let's not lie, but he's got 3 and 3 now, back to back to back, 9 points, 8 points, 10 points, 6.2. Bamford isn't performing. I don't know for the life of me why Calvert-Lewin is so highly owned, and I would love to get rid of him, but I probably am going to have to keep him because of bigger fires to fight. I got roped into keeping him or buying him a while ago. It's kind of like the Timo Werner, just the community got to me. But
Calvert-Lewin's another one a bit like Richarlison last night, where he wasn't quite as wasteful as Richarlison, but he did have probably 2 big chances where he's sort of one-on-one with the keeper and he fluffed them. So again, is that kind of, you can look at these stats, can't you, with players like Werner and stuff like that and say, goals are coming, but actually if their finishing isn't good enough, whereas someone like, I know Lingard's not a striker, but at the minute Lingard's scoring, when he was through on goal last night, it wasn't a gimme. It wasn't a goal that was guaranteed any player would score, but I was 100% confident he was going to score. He had to slightly lift it over the keeper, but I was just had no doubt when he was going to actually finish that.
Do you know
whereas
what?
with Calvert-Lewin and Werner and some other players, I'm just not.
Yeah. Do you know what made me really sad, actually, Wes? And I mean this, it actually kind of made me feel quite sad for the guy. Chelsea and West Brom, when I was watching Match of the Day and I seen Mount's goal, do you know where Werner assisted him?
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember it. It was just
I do.
I don't know if anyone tweeted about this, seen this, or it's been posted anywhere, but or if anyone can empathise with this or how I felt. But I just watched it and I was thinking, like, this is a guy who scored 30 plus goals in the Bundesliga. This is a guy who came over with the price tag, with the hype, and his confidence is just so shattered that he was through. Did you see the position he was in? He didn't shoot. Yeah. He cut back in. He didn't shoot on his left, and he squared it over to Mount, who was. Yeah, okay, it worked out, but it wasn't exactly an absolute shoe-in of a square. Like, it wasn't like, lay it off to him and he's definitely burying this. You know, there was a player tracking him and the keeper was kind of half in the way. It was like, do you know, it was...
I know exactly what you mean. I thought the same, because there was definitely an opportunity where he didn't need to really cut back. He had a really simple finish into the bottom right-hand corner, I think, which should have been a really easy goal if he was confident. And like you say, it looks like you could look at that as, it's a good assist, good teamwork, and it's better for the team that they scored that, and I get all those points. Normally I sort of agree from a team point of view, but like you say, that is just a sign of a player not confident that he didn't take that shot on. Like you said, it worked out for Chelsea because they got the goal, but realistically the striker there should be getting a shot away and should be scoring.
Yeah, literally that. It's no secret that Werner's lacking confidence. It is just no secret. It's not like I'm reinventing the wheel here or like coming up with something amazing, but it just saddened me a little bit to see a striker of that supposed caliber Germany's number like the starting striker, whatever, cutting back in and scoring at the back.
I was exactly the same.
But I seen something like, was it last week or whatever, about he wanted to stay and practice his finishing at training, and Thomas Tuchel sent him home.
Exactly.
And said, like, what was the analogy? Do you remember it?
It's saying you can't force it. It was something like, if you ask a woman to go out with you and she says no, sometimes you just got to leave it and then they'll come back to you. Or something like that. It's quite a good analogy.
Yeah. So basically, stop forcing it, Timo. You're thinking about it too much. Go home, eat some dinner, play some FIFA, come back tomorrow, and they'll go in. Sort of thing was what Tuchel was saying. But Wes, I think we've kind of went round the houses on the strikers there. I've kind of given a lot of them shout outs. Are you happy to move on?
Yeah. Let's. Should we move on to our teams and ranks, or do you want to do questions first, John?
Oh Jesus, yeah, this is going to go on, isn't it? Right, let's go to the questions. I suppose we have to prioritise those over our self-indulgent 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll fly through. I'm just going to fly through them top to bottom and see if we've answered them. Chelsea triple defence, we've touched on that. We've touched on a lot of wildcard options. We'll skip over SIBO. Great pod, lads. Enjoying the banter and charm. Thanks, FPL Ferry. Fixtures-wise for the end of the season. Bench fillers, which week would you lads target for bench boost after a wildcard this week? So, look, we've touched on like bench fillers, etc. But when are you going with a bench boost? Are you going to wait for more from Ben Crellin, if you had one?
Obviously it's not a problem that me and you have to think about anymore, John. Well, it's a nice problem, isn't it, having a bench boost still? But yeah, I think game week 35 is going to be the best chance to use that, because that's going to be another big double game week. And also, obviously, we've spoken about wildcard players as well, but also do your own research into those teams who are likely to have a double in 35, and maybe you can cherry pick some of their best assets now, so that when the wildcard does come along, you can do that. I haven't fully looked into all those issues yet, so yeah, do that yourselves when you plan in your wildcard. But I'd probably bench boost 35 during that big double if you can get a good squad together then.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. There's very kind of they stand out, the bench boost options, I think, a bit. Rich FPL, afternoon boys, I'll get things started. Should have read this one out first, Rich, sorry for shafting you there. When on a wild card, if you've got to choose between players with good fixtures and bad form, or players with good form and terrible fixtures, who do you prioritise or go for? Wolves a great example of poor form but good fixtures. Yeah, so look, we've kind of covered a few of these, but maybe just to double down on that point, form over fixtures, fixtures over form. I think I'm more of a form guy than a fixture guy, but ideally both, I think.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is ideally both, aren't they?
I think I'm the same. I wouldn't go for, assets like if... It's tough. It is definitely a mixture, and you can't be just one or the other, of course, but yeah, if to kind of answer that question, I would probably prioritise form. For example, Jesse Lingard, I've barely even researched his fixtures properly. I've seen that they're half okay, they're semi decent, but I'd be keeping Lingard regardless. And likewise with Rafinha, I'm kind of thinking that sort of Leeds can possibly score against anyone, and therefore I'm kind of happy to hold Rafinha for some of their tough games. I probably wouldn't hold with both. So say if I had Rafinha and Bamford, I'd probably move one on. But yeah, I would be leaning towards form. Yeah, like I just said, someone like Lingard wouldn't go anywhere. Someone like Kane wouldn't go out of my team, even if his play had tough fixtures and stuff like that. So and likewise, just because, like we kind of caveated as well, Arsenal and Wolves have got really great fixtures, but most of their assets are a no-go for me. There are a couple you can go for. But yeah, so I guess in that sense, definitely form over fixtures if we had to pick one.
Yeah, I think I'm form over fixtures, but it depends. Yeah, no, I have to be. If I had to pick one, gun to my head, because I'm not looking at Wolves even with their fixtures. Their fixtures are amazing, do you know? But their form and they're just not the Wolves of old this season. So yeah, but ideally both, or at least some sort of semblance of both. Like if someone has these Leeds fixtures are really kind of getting to me now. They kind of crept up on me, I'll be honest with you. I missed them. Man City, Liverpool, United. I'm kind of looking at that going yeah, Rafinha, you're in great form and all, but I'm ugh. Those fixtures are terrible. I kind of want reds and greens, I want a bit of a mix. But anyway, moving on. Nigel Hayworth. I'm going to go for Haworth. How to get through the fixture swing from game week 31 when you've blown all your chips. That's what me and Wes are doing. And to be honest with you, for me, it's all down to, like, we were kind of planning for this for a while. We were looking at that game week 32 with Spurs. But Wes, when we get onto our teams, I'm kind of going to panic to you. I've got a lot of players I want rid of. So how to get through it for me is stay calm, don't make any rash decisions, and just keep chipping away. Kind of, you'll get there. You might be a few weeks behind those wildcarders getting to your optimal team and switching, but you just kind of have to do your best without taking 12-point hits. Like,
so yeah, I'd agree with everything there. Just you said there, John, because I agree in not taking big hits. You don't need to. You're going to kind of get jealous seeing all these wildcard drafts. I'll get a bit jealous as well. It's just the nature of it. But what I'll do is I'll believe in the players I've got. They've got me this far. They've got me some green arrows. They're still decent options. They might not have the perfect fixture, but who's to say that Rafinha can't get me something against Man City? You know, City have conceded in a few of their games recently, so yeah, why can't Rafinha get me something there? And likewise with, I haven't got ideal fixtures this week. Last week I did have really good fixtures, but you know, I've got good players in there who can get me FPL points, so I'll be sticking by it. And like you said, John, you can get there a bit slower than everyone else. Use free transfers wisely, maybe the odd -4 if it's really needed, but yeah, you don't need to be going for big overhauls. The wildcarders might get a little bit of a head start on you, but 2 or 3 weeks down the line, you should be able to use free transfers to build up to a wildcard squad that you would have had anyway, if that's kind of makes sense.
You've just got a bit of a delay almost, and it's all about making the right decisions and fighting the right fires, because like the wild card might outscore your players by a bit, but if you're getting rid of the right players in the right order and bringing in the right players in the right order, you shouldn't lose out that much. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, 100%. Let's see. I'm just looking through them here. It's so hard to kind of pick a couple. We've been through you and White's question.
I'll just jump in on one. John. Gary Proctor has said Antonio replacements is 3-5-2 a better option. Firstly, I'll say definitely wait for news. He definitely knows he's got bad hamstring, so he kind of came off as a precaution. He wanted to play on. I noticed last night that he said to the manager, "I'm fine to play on," but the manager pulled him off. Wait and see how that develops. If he's only going to miss the one game, maybe just leave him on the bench for a week and play your other players, a 4-4-2 or 3-5-2, and maybe you can keep him, because like I kind of said earlier about the options to replace him aren't that great at the minute. Maybe you could go Iheanacho, maybe you could go up to Vardy, but yeah, there's not a lot of great options at the minute in my opinion. So yeah, I think wait for news. If he's okay or only going to miss the one game, maybe it's a hold, and I think that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I'm not having to replace Antonio, so I'm never going to be able to answer that as well as you did, Wes. Hastvik says DCL or someone else. For me, I'd ideally get rid of him, but I've bigger fires to fight. So if I had the absolute choice, someone else. I don't know who. One of the options we put out there, maybe. A lot of people might disagree with that. Do you know, we had a couple of big chances, as you're saying. Fixtures aren't terrible. They aren't great either, though. I just don't think he's done enough to warrant his ownership and price. Well, no, definitely his price, but maybe his ownership's a bit much.
I'm off Calvert-Lewin at the minute personally as well. I had him until fairly recently. I can't remember what game week it was, but yeah, I've gone off Calvert-Lewin a bit. He could. We say this every week, but he could prove us wrong. Of course, he could. He has got goal scoring pedigree, and he was getting into some good positions. But yeah, for me, I think there are probably better options out there. But I think it might be one of those issues, like I've said it a lot this pod, but because the lack of sort of strikers in that price range, and because of maybe other fires where people might have Bale, people might have Antonio, people might have, I don't know, other fires to put out, like you said, that maybe you'll end up holding him. But yeah, if this question was a bit vague, but if I was on a wild card, I probably wouldn't be bringing him in.
Well, Wes, I looked at the rest of the questions and we've kind of covered them all. So very quickly, we'll wrap up just with our teams and where we're sitting.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else you can think of. But for me, my game week, like most people, shit enough in defence. Martinez thankfully getting a few saves for 4 points. Cresswell, Target, Dallas, no more than 2 points, and Cresswell had 1. Sorry, Target got 2, Dallas got 2, Cresswell got 1. Son got a point, Bamford got 2, Calvert-Lewin got 2, just let me down. Bruno with a 5-pointer. Rafinha got 6. I'm glad I didn't captain him because we were talking about it and I was close. And I'm actually gutted I couldn't convince you, because my whole plan last week was if you'd have bet and said I'll captain him if you captain him, I was going to get you back for the Calvert-Lewin. It was in my head. I was thinking I am 100% captaining Kane. But I should have pressed you a bit harder and tried to put you're kind of, I don't know,
have worked, but
put
yeah,
you on the line a wee bit with the podcast and maybe you would have bet. But anyway, Captain Kane saved the week. 63 points, up to 13.5k from like 16 something. Do you know, it's a green arrow. We're happy, but I'm a little bit nervous. You're only 4 points behind me now. You had a good week. You had a great week.
Hello?
I can hear you now. I was just saying...
Sorry, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Say what you said at the end again. I didn't catch it.
Basically, just saying I'm a little bit scared. You had an amazing week. There's only 4 points between us now. Tell us about your week.
So, yeah, I caught you up a little bit, didn't I? I'm only, 4 points behind, like you said. I got 75 to your 63, so 12 points more. I think a lot of teams will be the same, like a lot of blanks. And again, like I said earlier, there wasn't really many clean sheet points knocking around. So I got Conser, Dallas, Shaw, all with 2 points blanking. Martinez with some save points like yourself. Lingard was the man again, absolute legend. Rafinha did okay, again, assist. Fernandez, I'd have probably preferred him to blank, but he got an assist just because of other people captaining him. Salah, Salah's a little bit, not a differential. I think he was about 30% owned in the sort of top 10k, top 100k. But for Salah, that felt like a bit of a differential because most weeks, if you've back in the day, having Salah but not captaining him, it was like you'd get punished by any goal. But that was nice, getting an 8-pointer off him. Antonio, Watkins and Kane. So yeah, Watkins did well for me in the end, got a goal, bonus point. Antonio was fairly unlucky, and Kane captain was the main difference there. So yeah, the main difference compared to other people who didn't captain them. So yeah, decent week. Green arrow up to, where am I in the world, John? Let me just bring that up. I think 15k-ish. Yeah, 15,572. And you're probably what, where would you be? About the same, 15k?
I'm 2k ahead of you.
Oh really? With 4 points, 2k. That's good. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So that's quite tight up there then. So yeah, go on, John.
I was going to say, I forgot to mention that I had Lingard as well. I skipped over him somehow, even though he's one of the highlights of the week.
Yeah.
Lingard was amazing. So yeah, Wes, we both had good weeks. We're both sitting sort of top 20k. You're what, 15.5, and I'm 13.5. We're both up there. We're both sort of on a late push for top 10k. We're both doing it against the grain. I don't know what's the word. We're both up against it. We've got no chips left, no wildcards. Everyone's wildcarding this week, and me and you are fighting the good fight for top 10k chipless.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I'm chipless in terms of strategically being able to use. Oh,
you've got triple captain, haven't you?
Yeah, I can't use a wild card strategically or a free hit to optimise fixture or anything like that. But what I can do in week 32, where almost certainly everyone will captain Kane. At that point, I'll triple captain Kane, so I'll get one. So you're going to have Kane captain. Let's say he gets another 13 points, just for argument's sake. You'll get 26 from Kane in that example, and I'd get 39. So I could potentially, hopefully he does okay and gets me a nice little boost. But yeah, a triple captainship isn't the be all and end all. It will just be, hopefully, if he doesn't blank and gets a couple of goals, I can get a little bit of a boost from it.
Well, Wes, look, I don't know which one of us is going to be buying the paints at the end of the season. It's getting very tight, and one of us is going to have to paint the winner.
Yeah.
So
looking forward to it.
I'm going to have to start clearing a wee space in the downstairs bathroom. It's getting a little bit tight here, but I'm confident I can take you on head to head. The underdog. I'm sure everyone's cheering for me against the professional FPL content creator, but I'm just going to try my best. Wes, is there, I suppose, make sure, I think that's us. So everyone, make sure you subscribe if you like this. Again, leave us a review. You might get a shout out next week. And come and join us for the live stream. It's 99% Thursday at 8 p.m. on Fantasy Football Hub, their YouTube channel. But just keep an eye on our Twitters. You can find us, just look up John Nellis or FPL Heisenberg and you'll find us, no problem. And Dad, Wes?
No, all good. Again, thanks everyone for listening. And hopefully got some good insights, and keep it the reviews and the sharing on Twitter and WhatsApp and all that. It really helps us out.
Absolutely. Well, look, thanks very much, and we'll chat to you next week.
Cheers, John.